and welcome to Something to Talk About. I'm Linda McNamee, and for the next hour, we are going to be learning all about the Shriners and everything you ever wanted to know but were afraid to ask. But before we begin, I would like to thank you for tuning in. And if you have any questions for us this evening, please feel free to give us a call at 781-270-9199. I always have to look at the monitor because I never call. Or if you have a question and you think about it after we're live, you can always email me at talk@bcattv.org. I love to get emails. So if you have a question for tonight, or if you have suggestions for a future topic, feel free to drop me a little note. And as usual, I would like to begin by thanking the crew here this evening. We have Kyle Ruffin and Corey McNeil, who are staff members here. And without them, BCAT probably wouldn't remain running because it would be, we won't go there. But we also have some wonderful volunteers. We have Colleen Moore and Tatiana Hawkins. I almost had to look at my notes, Tatiana. And they've given up their Wednesday evening to come and help me out. So I really appreciate that. And there are cookies in the other room too for you guys. And one last thank you to my husband for staying home for Daddy Date Night. Hopefully the kids are not giving you a hard time and you can enjoy reading your book. So now I would love to introduce my guest. We have Dave or David Raymond.
I prefer Dave.
Dave.
Unless you're my grandmother.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you. And you are the potentate, which is the leader of the Aleppo Shriners?
That's correct. You could say it's equivalent to a CEO, a president of a corporation. Oh, wow. So I'm the head of the organization locally here in Wilmington.
Cool.
That's right. It's quite an honor. It's
so
something that...
Before we get into that, like, where did you grow up and how did you get involved in the Masons and or the Shriners? Because we're going to talk about the difference a little bit later on.
Well, I grew up locally, just right up 128 in Wakefield, and currently I reside in Saugus. I have roots here in the community through business and friends, but in terms of my connection to Masonry and Shriners, I'm what you'd call in our fraternity a Shrine legacy, meaning a multi-generational.
Okay.
So my grandparents, both of my grandfathers and my father and all my uncles were Masons and Shriners.
Oh,
so
okay.
I had an interest growing up by their involvement, and then I became involved.
Just by proximity,
yeah,
you know? Okay.
That's right. So I'm a third generation Shriner here in Wilmington, and I just had an interest, and the more I was looking for involvement, my kids were getting older, and I wanted things to do, something that had a meaning and worth my time and my effort. So I became more involved, and never expected to get involved with the political side and go up through a progressive line of offices, but that happened, and in 2009 I was appointed to a 7-year successive line.
Okay, so you said like appointed, so somebody names you, or is it like an election that you have to choose to run?
Well, it begins as an appointment. It's a 7-year progressive line, and for the first 2 years you're appointed by the potentate. So in 2009 I was selected to go in as the second ceremonial master, which is our entry-level position, so to speak. And I was reappointed in 2010, and then I was up for election for the remaining 5 years until this previous January, when I was elected by our membership to serve.
Cool.
Yeah.
Because they like you.
Well, I guess so.
You do good work.
All the other candidates took one step backwards when I stepped forward or something.
So like anybody step forward, if you want to do it, step forward, and everybody else step back. And
That's
you
right. Can we have a volunteer?
Volunteer or be volunteered.
True.
So let's step back a little bit. What is the difference between a Mason and a Shriner? Is it the same thing, or?
Well, I think it's probably easier to explain how Masonry and Shriners are related.
Okay. Yeah.
And so in order to be a Shriner, you have requirements of being a Master Mason, a Freemason. And Freemasonry is a fraternity of men bound by secrecy. We take an obligation to support one another, to help one another advance socially,
Okay, the whole secrecy thing is kind of scaring
Well,
me now.
secrecy,
So
I shouldn't
if you
say
tell
we-
me something,
well,
you're going to have to kill me or something.
No, I guess the biggest secret in masonry is there really is no secret. Like, we don't know where the national treasure is, and we...
You have a secret handshake, though.
We do. We have secret signs of modes of recognition via handshakes. So in order to be a Shriner, you have to be a Master Mason, but not every Master Mason has to be a Shriner.
Okay.
So it's an advancement in the fraternity. There are primarily there are three organizations you can move on to after being a Master Mason. That's a member of the York Rite, which is a Knights Templar and Commandery, which is very much history, tells lessons about the Knights Templar and Christianity. And then in Scottish Rite, which is more of a series of plays, and they talk about the same lessons, just present them in a little different manner. And then there's a Shriners, so those are the three typical...
Like a ranking type thing?
No, there is no real rank.
Okay.
It's a matter of choice and preference and interest, personal interest.
Okay. Now, you mentioned Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to be of a Christian denomination in order to be involved in the organization?
No, not at all. Actually, I have friends in the fraternity who are Muslim, Christian, Buddhist. What we require is to have a belief in a supreme being. Okay. Because we won't accept an atheist, because if we feel as though if you won't bind yourself to belief in a supreme being, you probably wouldn't bind yourself to support and living up to the expectations of a membership in a fraternity. So we only require that you have a belief in a supreme being, whether that is God or Buddha or Allah. It's not a Christian organization.
Fair enough. Okay. Now, we talked about the fact that you were elected to become potentate. Now, you said that's kind of like a CEO. Is this, how long is your term, and what happens when you're done? Can you do it again, or do they kick you out?
Well, the term is for 1 year.
Okay.
My term will expire in January of 2016, and presumably our chief rabbin, who's equivalent to first vice president, presumably he'll be elected to serve as potentate next year. At that point, I become a past potentate. My involvement becomes somewhat more selective. I'm not mandated and required to go to all the meetings. My participation will continue. I hope to continue to serve on our membership committee, and I currently serve on our corporation that handles our building maintenance, so I'd like to continue to serve on those capacities. Okay. And I also look forward to having a more loose schedule in the summertime without the requirement of being in certain places almost every weekend.
I don't have to go there. I don't have to go there.
So my involvement becomes somewhat more selective at that point.
Now, you mentioned like the first vice president. I forget the term that you used. He's in training to become the potentate. Well, I'm confused about the whole election thing. Yeah. Does he run unopposed?
Typically, we don't have a lot of controversial situations in our membership, but it's not uncommon with some of our neighboring shrine centers to have more politics and controversy, where anybody can be nominated to run against that position. In order to run to be potentate, in order to be elected, you're required to have served as chief rabbin. Or as a past potentate. So if
so 5 years down the road, if you want to come back,
or if there were any number of reasons why someone couldn't fulfill their obligation to continue and they needed someone to, but I don't think I could ever see myself.
You'd be careful. You never know.
I don't think I could ever see myself. Running, opposing somebody to, unless there was a real serious problem that but like again, we're pretty harmonious. So part of the nice process of being appointed and reappointed a second year and then being elected over 5 years is you typically could filter out somebody that would be, potentially a problem for you. So.
Now, you mentioned some of the neighboring jurisdictions. How widespread is the Aleppo Shriners?
Aleppo Shriners jurisdiction is all of eastern Massachusetts, the Cape Cod and Islands, southeastern Mass.
Okay. Is it based on population or just
No, it was just
territory?
based in Massachusetts. It was just
Okay.
divided by geographically.
Okay.
So we have 2 shrine centers in Massachusetts, Melha Shriners in Springfield and Aleppo Shriners in Wilmington.
Now, do you ever do stuff with other
Yeah.
with other groups?
We have what's called the Northeast Shrine Association, which encompasses 15 shrine centers in northeastern United States and Canadian provinces. So we get together approximately 15 times a year. We host receptions and visit each other.
Okay.
And annually we have a session which we call our Northeast Field Days, where we get together and we have competitions. We have business meetings. We have a lot of business to support our hospitals, and we put together a Northeast Parade. This year that's going to be held in Lewiston, Maine. It's been held in Canada. We hosted it, Aleppo hosted it in 2010 on Cape Cod. So it travels around, and this year it'll be in Lewiston, and we call that the Northeast Field Days. That's our association, and we do.
Now, in the Northeast, is there like the equivalent of a potentate for the whole Northeast region? Or
No.
you just kind of get together and it's more of a committee type thing?
That's right. More of a committee. We establish a board of directors within the association, and that's typically a 4-year progressive
Okay.
office.
Now, you mentioned running the hospitals. Can you tell me a little bit more about the hospitals? Does each shrine have its own hospital, or?
It's a very good question. We have 22 hospitals within our system, and those are in Canada, United States, and Mexico.
Okay.
They're all in North America. We have a new hospital under construction in Montreal,
Wow.
which is going to be our flagship hospital, naturally.
Okay.
State-of-the-art technology.
Ooh.
We have 3 burns hospitals, one here in Boston, one in Philadelphia, and one in Galveston, Texas.
Okay.
Boston, we just recently announced a new approach to orthopedic care. We're going to encompass both of our cares in one hospital. We've been geared up for burns, and we've been treating burns and leading burn research since the 1960s.
Okay. That was like the original?
The Shriners Hospital started in 1922
Oh, wow.
as a polio hospital. Our first hospital was in Shreveport, Louisiana, and we treated children with polio.
Okay.
And as polio, that epidemic, was cured and cleared up, we moved our focus into orthopedic care, scoliosis, birth defects, injuries.
Now, are the Shriners hospitals just for children, or do they treat adults as well?
Historically, we're just for children. On rare occasions, very rare occasions, we have treated adults.
Okay.
The
'Cause I'm thinking like burn centers might be.
Well, if you recall the Station nightclub fire
I do.
in Rhode Island, that's my only recollection that the Boston Burn Hospital was open to treat adult patients because of the
Like
need.
it's an you know.
The necessity was there. But we are affiliated with Mass General. We have an affiliation with Mass General Hospital, so typically our patients are come in and they're triaged and evaluated at Mass General. If it's an adult patient, they would handle it there, and the children, we have a tunnel that connects the 2 hospitals onto Blossom Street, so we have our children come in, triaged and assessed, and moved right into our hospital for care.
Now, the children that are patients or that go to a Shriners hospital, can any child go, or is it just based on, financial need, or how does that work?
Any child is eligible for care. We have screenings. We have screening committees that would evaluate the condition of a child right away and determine what level of care and how much success we could do.
Okay.
Today I received a call from our recorder, who is more or less our secretary and our business manager.
Okay.
And we had a request to fly 2 children from Honduras to.
Wow.
There was a recent explosion with in Honduras when 2 children were burned severely, and we authorized a medical flight to bring them into our Boston hospital for $32,000.
Wow.
And that's is something we can talk about.
That's a pretty big chunk of change.
Our transportation fund, which is a wonderful program that we run out of Wilmington locally.
Okay. Well, let's talk about it.
Okay.
Now, you said it's run out of Wilmington. Is it transportation just to the Boston hospital, or is it for transportation to and from all the hospitals, like internationally?
Primarily by financial resources, the majority of our transportation is for the Boston Burn Hospital.
Okay.
We have anywhere between 8 and 15 flights a year, and expense varying from $32,000. I imagine that was a negotiated price for the 2 children.
Okay.
Sometimes they can't do that. 2 children could come separately but they range from $30,000 to $40,000 per flight. We also transport.
Is this like a medvac flight,
That's
or
more or less it's an intensive care unit in the air. So we have a full nursing staff, doctors, and all the emergency equipment. So it's very costly. It's not some of our children can fly in for follow-up care domestically.
Okay.
And we do an awful lot of domestic flights as well.
Okay.
But in addition to that, we transport children locally to our Springfield hospital on a regular basis. We pick up at Logan Airport and drive out for follow-up care. Most of that is day surgeries.
Okay.
So we have drivers that take them in a van to the hospital, and they wait with the family and then they bring them home. And there's a lot of local patients. So we do a lot of that transportation. And on occasion we get requests from our headquarters to help other hospitals. So we've transported children to Erie, Pennsylvania for care, and to Montreal for care. So mostly in Boston, but it is somewhat around the Northeast.
Now, forgive me, you mentioned that Montreal, you're building a hospital. When's the target opening for that? Or is it still too early in the project to know?
The grand opening is scheduled for August 20th. It has bounced around August 20th of this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's pretty...
It's well underway.
Well
in fact,
underway, okay.
I was with some friends from Montreal this weekend from Aleppo Shriners, and he was showing me pictures that he was arranged a tour of the hospital, mostly 80% complete.
Wow.
And they're having a big celebration planned that I hope to be able to get up to in August. That's a
good time of year to visit
the
Montreal.
only
You probably
hospital.
don't want to go in January.
I've been there in the winter, so yeah, I love it in the summer. So we're looking forward to being able to get up there and be a part of that celebration.
Okay.
That's the only hospital in Canada, and Canadian subsidizes the medical care, so it's somewhat different. The model is going to be different.
Okay.
There's going to be a lot more care, where in our hospitals in the States, it's a lot more research.
Okay.
You know, most of our hospitals, their budget is about 60% for research.
Okay.
In Canada, it's more care, and the government's paying for that care in a lot of cases.
Okay, so the research is done here, and then the practice is... Okay. Let's table the hospitals, because I'm admiring your lovely fez.
My bling?
So, yeah, the bling. Now, do all of the fezes have bling, or just the potentate?
The potentate gets a little extra bling.
He's got extra bling.
But most of them have bling, and some of them have just a gold bullion stitching. I probably actually like that a little better. I'm not the bling type.
Well, you wear it well.
Thank you. So
what's the history of the Shriners Red Fez?
Back in the 1870s, when the Shriners was formed, when a group of Masons decided they wanted to do something a little different and have a little more fun and frivolity, there were a couple of prominent Masons in New York City who sat at the Knickerbocker pub and put together this concept, this idea. There was a doctor and an actor. The actor had traveled the world extensively and had visited luxurious parties in the Mediterranean and had just loved the Arabic theme. The fez is a Moroccan, common Moroccan headwear. So
So it's more like imitation is the best form of flattery
exactly,
thing. It's
yeah,
not
yeah,
necessarily.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that's why more or less the Arabic theme was developed
Oh, okay.
for the pageantry and the colors
Oh, okay.
and the bling.
And the bling. Now, are all the fezzes red?
Yeah, there are what we call a green fez.
A green fez.
Green
Oh,
fez
okay.
is an honorary membership. At Aleppo, we have 3 or 4 green fez Shriners,
Oh, okay.
and they're honorary. And Mayor Flynn was an honorary green fez
Okay.
recipient, and several other distinguished people. So, but for the most part, they're all red. There's a women's organization that's called Ladies Oriental Shrine.
Okay.
They also raise money for Shriners hospitals. They wear a white fez,
Oh,
so
okay.
very similar.
So is it like a sister organization or
Not entirely a sister organization, but it's another organization that supports Shriners hospitals for children.
Now, is there an organization within Shriners for women specific? How do they get involved? Like, you know,
It's a good question, because
you mentioned your kids. I'm assuming that at one point
Yeah,
in time you
right.
had a wife who might want
wife,
to be involved.
God bless my wife. She has supported me immensely and allowed me to have the time
Okay.
to do a lot of the things that I've done to get to this point. But, you know, growing up in a household where mom stayed home, dad worked hard to support the family, and he went out and he did most things like the guys did. Today's society has changed so much. Husbands and wives both work. They battle for that free time. They share it. And so it's nice to be able to have the women come and be involved with us. My wife is very involved. A lot of the Shriners' wives we call them ladies. It's kind of weird, but a lot of our ladies are involved with us on a regular basis, and even families.
Okay.
We host a circus annually, and we have
I know.
groups
I've
of
been-
families who come and work as a family. They give up a day,
Cool.
sometimes all 16 performances.
Wow.
So we really encourage it. We do have an organization within the Shriners that's called Daughters of the Nile, and that's for
Okay.
women to have membership in.
Okay.
It's so selective. That's by invitation only, and I don't know.
okay.
I don't understand the reason for that. We can petition for membership to Shriners. They have to be invited.
Okay.
So we do have that organization within the Shriners.
Now, one of my very early shows, as I mentioned to you before, we're on episode 52 now, but back when we were still in single-digit episode numbers, we had someone from the Rainbow Girls, or the Rainbow Association, come on, and that's affiliated with Shriners as well.
That is. That's one of our Masonic fraternity family members, which I know a lot about as well. Being in that legacy line,
Yep.
I grew up with my sister being in Rainbow.
Okay.
My mom, my aunt, my grandparents were very involved. Currently, my wife and my daughter are very involved with Wakefield Assembly of Rainbow,
Okay.
where my daughter serves as the worthy advisor, who's the head of that group, and my wife is the mother advisor. So, you know,
So they're involved.
They're involved. We're a
involved.
very active family. We do this together. So there's a lot of things that the women are involved with us and get to share the fun. It's not all about the guys going to have a good time, and I mean those
Sure it
days
is.
are, to a small degree.
Yeah.
We do have rarely do we have a stag event.
Okay.
Our initiation ceremonies are private to membership
Okay.
only, but then as soon as that initiation is over, it's open to the public. So most of our wives come and they get to socialize and watch us, and so we are very open to family involvement and the wives.
So tell me more about the
participation.
circus.
The circus. We're coming up on our 85th year, I believe,
Okay.
85th annual circus.
Now, do all shrines have their have circuses, or is it only like if you have the resources available to you?
I always thought that all Shriners did. Now, recently, this past weekend, I learned of one of our shrine centers in the north who's just finally decided that it's not worth having a circus. They weren't earning the revenue to offset the investment type
okay.
of thing. It becomes a business decision at a certain point.
Okay, understood.
So we have a very good circus. We have a great circus promoter that comes in and puts everything on for us.
Okay, so that's like the talent.
That's the talent.
So they don't have to recruit you and your family to
That's
like go
right.
up on the high wire or anything.
Right, yeah.
But you
I
do
would
have
try
clowns.
it. I would try it. We have our own clowns, and they're always incorporated. They usually run 2 skits in our circus. They're always
Okay.
incorporated in our, and we have a lot of our members who, everything is run by volunteers. So
Okay.
when you're dealing with someone in the concession stand, if you're dealing with someone to buy a novelty item, they're all members and family members.
Oh, excellent.
So
how do you become a clown?
how do you become a clown? Well, first you have to be a Shriner.
Okay, well, that helps.
And then there's this, in this
Step
day and
one.
age, in this day and age, we have to be very cautious of our environment and people that are involved with children. So there's a series of, background checks,
Okay.
Corey and so forth, that the clowns go through first and foremost to become a member, and then they're required to do so many hours in makeup, so many trips to the hospital per year, so many hours in makeup.
So it's not just at the circus, it's...
Yeah, they're very, very intense. One of our most active, most time-consuming units is the
Okay.
clowns because of their requirements,
Okay.
because they're very serious about what they do.
Serious and clown just doesn't sound like it should be in the same
but
sentence.
not a scary clown, but a serious clowns.
Some people think all clowns are kind
they're
of scary.
serious about our philanthropy. I know one of my sister's best friends is very, very terrified of clowns.
So is there a limit as to how many men can volunteer to work in the clown industry?
No, currently they probably have around 50 members in their roster.
Just remember getting the little trading cards at the circus.
Yeah, you've
My
got a
daughter's
few.
like, wow, I have a card. It was like worth its weight in gold. I mean, she's just running around here with it. Now, going back a long way from when I was a little kid, Shriners have those little cars?
No, we've got some little cars.
You got those little cars?
Oh, yeah.
Where do I see those little cars?
We have 2 new units. Well, I shouldn't say 2 new units. One new unit that's brand new this year is the Aleppo custom carts. And those are all custom go-karts.
Okay.
My unit that I belong to, the director staff, we've just kind of rebranded ourselves a little bit. We just invested in 4 mini monster trucks. So they're like a little...
Mini monster truck.
Oh yeah, if you can picture the Bigfoot truck going over the cars. Well, it's built on a go-kart platform with big knobby tires and
Must be fun.
really fun. I've driven them on 2 occasions. We just got them midway through last summer.
Okay.
I've driven one on 2 occasions.
Now, are they just for use in parades or special events or?
Well, mostly just parades on occasion. We do host a football game, a charity football game. It's a fundraiser, so we'll usually have them out on display there, but mostly just for parades.
Okay. And what are some of the parades? Do you do the Boston St. Patrick's Day Parade or?
We have a small number of group. We don't have a full, what we call a tour of duty is when we go out in our entirety and do a parade, but we have individual group parades. So we have our Cape Cod Fire Brigade. They do the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Boston every year.
Oh, okay.
They've got a fleet of go-karts, golf carts that have been modified to miniature fire trucks.
Oh,
really neat,
cool.
really neat. So they do that parade every year. And we also do an annual parade in Chinatown. This year we have annually we do the Memorial Day Parade in Somerville. That's our season opener, if you would. Then the following day we do a Memorial Day Parade in Wilmington.
Okay.
Several communities, Newton, Roslindale, Lexington, Revere. Probably 10 or 12 parades on average a year.
Okay.
And then we also travel to an international meeting this year that's going to be hosted in Houston, where all 190 shrine centers get together for our international legislation, all of our
And they race the
meetings.
go-karts.
And we have all kinds of competitions. They do race. They have a little
obstacle course.
obstacle courses, slow ride, fast ride.
Okay.
I've seen a couple of accidents and
Ooh.
a lot of close calls.
Yeah, I
But
know
it's
you run
so
the
much
hospitals, but you're not supposed to also be clients or
We're not-
patients.
We're over 18, so
Okay, there you go.
they won't even talk to us.
Yeah, just figure it out on your own. Here's a Band-Aid. Musicians. You guys also have your own group of, is it brass band?
We have a brass band, which is a traditional marching band.
Okay.
They play everything from big band era music, John Sousa, Phillips, Boston Pops.
Oh, okay.
Full band music. We also have a Highland pipe band.
Okay.
We have an Oriental band which plays
Pipe band sounds
traditional.
cool.
Yeah, they're really good. They've got some great pipers and drummers,
Okay.
and I kind of like that music myself anyway. So we have that, and we have a swing band that's phenomenal. So we have four bands.
Okay.
We have a singing group, like a choir. They're called the
Wow.
Chanters.
Okay.
So we have a lot of music.
Yeah. Well, do you guys do performances, or is it, do you do like fundraising performances so
almost-
somebody could go see somebody?
Almost all of the bands have individual gigs that they do. The swing band probably plays out the most.
Okay.
The brass band plays a lot of private gigs.
Okay.
And some of them are for our hospital, some of them are for a store grand opening or an anniversary celebration.
Okay.
Some of them maybe one or two pipers, some of them might be the whole band.
Now, are these outings also fundraising?
Typically.
Or, okay.
A lot of them are just for, a lot of things we do are just for public awareness, but
Okay.
a lot of people want to help the Shriners Hospital
Right.
for Children, so they're very generous with donations. We do an event annually in Marlborough at Julio's Liquors, which is a whiskey tasting, and they have our pipe band play.
Okay.
They do a Scotch tasting. It's a really big weekend for them, and they donate all of their proceeds to the transportation fund.
Cool.
And that usually anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000 for their annual event.
And when does this usually come around?
That's coming up in March. That's
Oh, so
Julio's
real
Liquors
soon.
in Marlborough, and they call it the Whiskey A Go-Go. It's a great big event. They have hundreds of people come through, and
Okay.
you buy a glass, you sample scotches. And then they have a beautiful finished basement in the store where they have like wine tastings and seminars. It's a great event.
Now, is there more information on your website if somebody wanted to participate, perhaps?
Yeah, most of our events are. That one may not be linked
Okay.
to our website, but information would be available on Julio's Liquors website, I'm
Okay.
sure.
Good to know. It's
Yeah,
all about
yeah.
the marketing.
It may be.
All about
It may
marketing.
be linked, but I don't think so.
Okay, so we talked about clowns, we talked about the cars, we talked about the musicians. Are there other specialties that are involved in Shriners?
Yeah, we have a group called the Fire Brigade. And most of those members are current or retired firefighters.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. We have a motorcycle unit, which typically are motorcycle riders, but they even have some members who aren't riders but just enthusiasts.
Okay.
So that's kind of a specialty. We have a group that works our kitchen, so a lot of them are chefs or work in the culinary field.
Okay.
So that's kind of a specialty group. And then others are just a mixed array of members.
going to have
we
fun.
have a medical unit, so they're either trained first responders,
EMTs.
EMTs.
Okay.
So there are some specialty groups, and we have a couple others in mind that we'd like to see get off the ground, like a sportsman group.
What kind of sports? Or
Yeah,
do I not
some-
want to know?
I don't know, like archery, fishing,
Okay.
something that just for a new interest group.
There you go.
Something that we're not attracting
Now, with any of these interests, do you have to already be trained? Like, do you have to be a trained musician or a trained EMT, or could you just say, oh, I've always wanted to learn more about emergency medicine. Can I get involved in this aspect? And
Yeah, absolutely.
more.
Yeah, they wouldn't turn anybody away. They would love to have someone who's trained and certified, but they do have annual training classes
Okay.
where they teach the minimum requirements.
Okay.
And that's led by a certified medical doctor.
Okay.
So we have a fully licensed staff. And they cover public events at our auditorium as well, so they have to be trained and ready to go at a moment's notice. Unfortunately, emergencies happen.
You never know. That's why they call them emergencies.
That's right.
Okay, now speaking of the auditorium, are only the events that happen there, are they Shriners events, or can someone rent the facilities for their organization or their outing?
We, at the time that we purchased that auditorium in 1977, our membership level was over 17,000 members.
Wow.
And we're nowhere near that anymore, so we don't have the revenue from our membership to support the building. So we rent it majority of the weekends a year. We're booked with professional trade shows and
so there's somebody that kind of manages
we have
all
a
of that.
full-time business manager who handles that.
Now, would they hire, you mentioned the medical staff. Would they have to provide their own, or would they hire the Shriners to cover that?
Well, we include our medical staff and our fire brigade staff for building emergencies, but we're also required by town bylaws for a public event over 100 people to have a town firefighter. So we have a police and fire detail at all our public events. And they take charge, and then our guys assist. So oftentimes it's one of our guys who encounter the situation, assess what's going on, and then the police or fire detail will take over.
You always let the guy who knows the most take over.
It's unfortunately, but it's a liability too. So
Okay. Back to the whole hospital thing. I'm like the queen of tangents, so I have to rely on my notes here. We talked about there's generally no charge for treatments in the hospital. Is there like an application procedure? Because sometimes if somebody's a burn victim, there's really no time to fill out an application. They need treatment right away.
That's right. And
So,
usually they're referred through hospitals.
okay.
In our case, Mass General.
So it's based on need. It's not,
Usually based on need.
oh, you
Now,
don't have an insurance card, I don't want to talk to you
those-
type thing.
No,
Okay.
not at all.
No, do you ever get coverage from insurance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, in 2009 we had to change our approach and the way we do business with the declining economy and our endowments shrinking. We were in a jeopardy, and we had legislation on the board to close 5 of our hospitals, which nobody wanted
Nobody
to do.
wants to do that, yeah.
So we had to take a serious business approach to reduce our operating budgets. And at that same time, the membership voted to accept third-party billing.
Okay.
So what that means is we've had a hospital system for 90 years with a motto that we treat children for free.
Okay.
It slightly altered our motto a little bit. We treat children regardless of their ability to pay.
Okay.
As I indicated, 2 children are flying in from Honduras today as we speak. They don't have domestic insurance. We're going to treat those kids whatever they need until we feel as though they're fully recovered. The difference is when we accept a patient with insurance, the insurance companies regulate how much care you can give. Shriners then continues the care to our standards. So if a child has insurance, we'll take what the insurance will pay, and then we continue the care above and beyond that. So we treat children regardless of their ability to pay, and oftentimes that's 100% free.
Cool.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Especially seeing some of the hospital costs these days.
Billions of dollars a year, believe me.
Billions?
Billions. Yeah.
Okay, now I noticed on your, I think it was on your website when I was like poking around, there's something called an outreach clinic. What is an outreach clinic?
Well, oftentimes, we want to have children in our hospitals at times when we have 6 or 8 empty beds.
Okay.
We have an endowment fund to treat children. So oftentimes we'll send a medical team out to oftentimes third world countries where they identify children that have a serious need for care. Oftentimes hospitals who don't have the knowledge and the experience, particularly with burns. Oftentimes they jeopardize children's lives by the care that they receive. So we send medical teams out to Russia and Yugoslavia and Chile and Dominican Republic. And we identify children, so we run outreach programs as part of our hospital. And that's part of where the funds that we raise go to cover like research as well.
Now, we've been talking a lot about burns, but earlier you said that you also do like orthopedic care.
That's right.
What types of orthopedic care are covered or are looked at or
Endless
helped?
amounts. We treat scoliosis on a regular basis.
Okay. How popular is that now? Is that kind of phasing out, or?
I couldn't tell you the percentage of our patients on the dashboard, but it's still common. Even my daughter has a slight case of scoliosis, nothing that she won't grow out of. So it's still common as far as I'm concerned. We treat scoliosis on a regular basis. We have a hospital in Philadelphia that specializes in spinal cord injuries.
Oh, okay.
We treat cleft lip and palate. That's one of our latest.
Okay.
Cleft lip and palate treatment is one of our latest things we've taken on in the last probably 10 years.
Wow. See, for some reason I wouldn't associate that with orthopedic care, but it is.
It is in a sense. You know, it's a limb or a birth defect. So we treat all sorts of orthopedic injuries, birth defects, injuries from accidents.
So that kind of leads into another question that I had about the burn victims. Is like plastic surgery covered in your hospitals, or do they have to go back to a different hospital to get?
We do skin grafting right in our hospitals, and that, as children are in growth stages, that oftentimes those skin grafts have to be replaced frequently. We do that in-house as well. In fact, Boston Burns Hospital invented artificial skin, which they partnered with Genzyme, and eventually Genzyme took over and continued the research. So we had one of the first skin banks in the world in our Boston Burn Hospital.
Skin banks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's cryogenics, frozen skin. They have to keep it. It's called a skin bank.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. Okay. I never knew they had those. Okay. So let's go back to the funding of the hospitals. What are some of the standard fundraisers that Shriners do to fund the hospitals? Do you accept donations from, how does that all work? I know you're doing the circus. You do the parades, the musicians.
Local levels we do, we have a couple of events annually. One I mentioned is the Shriners All-Star Classic football game.
Okay.
That's approximately in its 55th year.
Wow.
We hold that game at Bentley University. It's a high school all-stars game. Through a series of events and fundraisers for that game, ad books, donations, sponsors, that game nets approximately $80,000 annually. Wow. That's directly for the hospital transportation fund. That's where we raise money to bring the children in.
So does Aleppo focus on transportation fundraisers, or do you just do fundraising with, X amount goes to transportation, X amount, Y amount goes to something else? How do you?
Well, as we're obligated by our bylaws, our fundraising has to be strictly for the hospital. Okay. And if we joint fundraise for something with permission, we have to raise 50% of that is for our charity, and the other 50 could be for, if we were working in conjunction with Easter Seals or something.
Okay. Who do you have to get permission from? The potentate?
Our imperial potentate.
There's an imperial potentate. Oh, wait, hold on a second.
I was hoping you'd get back to this.
Okay.
You had asked if there was a governing potentate in our Northeast Association, which there isn't, but in our international association, we do have what's called the imperial potentate. Okay. He's the man. He's the number one.
What color's his fez?
Just like this.
He's got lots of bling?
He's got a little more bling.
Okay. Now, international. I just, earlier it sounded like it was pretty much just North America, but is it North American or is it really a worldwide organization like in Europe and
Really a
Asia?
worldwide. Now, when I joined 20 years ago, it was Shriners of North America.
Okay.
And we were pretty much North America. We had remote shrine clubs. Under Aleppo's jurisdiction out of Boston, we have the Dominican Republic Shrine Club.
Oh, okay.
There are shrine clubs in Panama, China. We now, in the last 5 years, have chartered a shrine center in Germany. This past July, at our last Imperial session, we gave auspices to Brazil to start a shrine center under the Shrine Temple in Washington, D.C.,
Okay.
Almas Shriners. So in Sao Paulo, Brazil, there are now a Shriners charter in process.
Okay.
Germany, Brazil, there are requests coming in because Freemasonry is a worldwide organization. There are
okay.
Freemasons around the world that want to be Shriners.
Okay.
So we officially changed maybe 3 years ago or 4 years ago to Shriners International.
Oh, okay.
And we truly are an international, worldwide organization now.
Now, when somebody charters a Shriners organization, does that also mean there's a hospital involved, or do they just want to help with the fundraising efforts?
Yeah, they might. They may be a time down the road when we would start to put hospitals in other countries around the world. I don't hear that talk now.
Okay.
But I think they want to be part of the philanthropy, and well, the Masonic fraternity is great.
Okay.
Brotherly love, a lot of support for one another, and helping each other become better people. And but we have a philanthropy with the Shriners. That's the hospital system.
Okay.
And I think people want to be attached to that.
Oh, okay.
So we have requests come in through Imperial in Tampa, where our headquarters is, from around the world, for information about chartering a shrine center.
Okay, so is the Imperial Potentate from Florida, or could he be from, in 5 years or whatever, should you choose to accept the challenge, could you become the Imperial Potentate? How does that work?
Yeah, the Imperial Potentate would be a whole other chapter. But the Imperial Potentate would be elected. He would propose his candidacy.
Okay.
It's a 10-year progressive line.
Now, is that 10 years in addition to the 7 that you went through?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so
So it's not just 3 years tacked on,
Yeah,
it's like
right.
starting over again?
It's starting all over again.
Okay.
And they're required to travel all over the world, mostly throughout the North America, where
Okay.
we're strongly populated. It's a big requirement to, you've almost got to be pretty independently wealthy or retired and be in a position to be able to travel and visit. And there's a cost just to being a candidate, marketing materials and traveling, getting around and meeting.
Oh, yeah.
It's politics involved. So you've got to be out there and you've got to meet people and shake hands. So, really, I could, if I wanted to, at some point propose candidacy for that.
Okay, now, just using you as an example again, because you're here, while you're serving as potentate, or even before you got to this level, could you be doing something on the national level as well as on the international level? Could you hold 2 jobs at the same time?
I'd have to.
Would you want to?
I'd have to look at the bylaws. I'm sure. Yeah, we have members who are involved in a regional.
Okay.
In the regional positions.
Now, are there
for
officerships in the regional?
Just within our association, but
Okay.
we have our Imperial membership committee has a regional representative.
Okay.
So that's somebody from this region who reports to the Imperial level.
Okay.
So whether or not you could do something on the national level and locally at the same time, I'd have to probably check the
Okay.
bylaws, but maybe.
Just wondering if
Yeah.
you'd want to.
Yeah,
And
you'd probably
again,
have
there's
to
a huge
have,
time commitment
your head
involved.
checked.
And
Yeah. There's
got to
a
run
lot
for
of-
2 elections.
So, I don't know who would want to do that, but
Okay. Well, you never
Yeah,
know.
I
There
never
might be
know.
somebody
Never
really
know.
ambitious.
the last time that we had someone from Massachusetts who served as imperial potentate was in 2000, and he was from Springfield.
Okay.
That's our Imperial Sir Ralph Sem. So he served in 2000, so he started that in roughly 1990.
Wow.
Then he continued on. He was our hospital chairman of the board. He was the chairman of the board of trustees. He really continued beyond 2000 until about 3 years ago when he finally said he's got to take time.
Stick a fork in me, I'm done.
So you can really keep going,
Okay.
and
So it's still involved. So, that right there says a lot for the organization because people
that's right.
want to remain
That's right.
involved.
Yeah.
So, am I missing anything? I'm probably missing
Let's
something.
see.
So we talked about what are the breakdown? Oh, there we go. What are the breakdown of services back to the hospital? Inpatient versus outpatient versus the whole outreach thing. I mean,
I'd say in Boston at the Burns Hospital because
Okay.
of the severity of the care, we have a lot more inpatient.
Okay.
Probably 75% of our care at the Boston Burn Hospital is inpatient,
okay.
and then 30% is outpatient. That's typically follow-up care, change the dressings, and
Okay.
you know.
Now, back with the inpatient, it reminded me of a question that I wanted to ask a while ago. You're flying in a couple of patients from Honduras.
Mhm.
They're probably going to be in the Boston area for a while. Do the Shriners offer housing options or a break, like vouchers for local hotels or something? Where do the families stay? Is that an option?
Well, all of the above. We, in fact, have 2 residence apartments in the Boston Burn Hospital.
Oh, okay.
So for long-term care,
Okay.
the families can stay there. Oftentimes, mom or dad can stay on a bed in the same room with their child,
Okay.
depending on the severity of their
Okay.
wounds and the sterility of the room. And we also house family in hotels locally in Boston.
Okay.
I guess that all mostly would depend on the availability of the rooms at the hospital versus the length of stay.
Okay. Now, I'm not sure if we covered this before, but we mentioned philanthropy, and you said the main philanthropic, if that's a word, mission of the Shriners is the hospitals. Are there other methods of philanthropy or other goals in mind? Or does it all just somehow relate and connect to the hospitals, like the transportation?
No, we primarily focus on the hospitals. Part of that is the transportation. The hospital endowment fund is pretty substantial and recovered from the economy pretty well. The hospital system has money. The way it's structured in the bylaws, we can't do anything. We can't donate funds directly to the Boston Hospital. Any funds that we want to donate to the hospital will go to the headquarters and be distributed evenly throughout the 22 hospitals.
Okay.
So they allow us to raise funds and administer funds for patient transportation. It's something that we do, so we have that local connection.
Okay.
And so our members are behind it. We raise in excess of $300,000 a year and expend every penny that we bring in. We have a red can program. You or some of the viewers may have seen our members in supermarkets with a red can, and we silently stand at the door, and the outpouring from the, believe me, the generosity and the outpouring from the community is unbelievable.
Wow.
That program in itself, just in the greater Boston area, raises in excess of $100,000 every year.
Wow. Now, when does that happen? Because I don't
That
think I've
happens
seen
throughout
cans in a
the
while.
year constantly. We're very
Oh.
big with the Roach Brothers, Market Basket, Cappy's Liquors.
Okay.
We do more during the holiday seasons, so you'll see us, you'll start to
Okay.
see more close to Easter time, Thanksgiving.
Because I'm like, there's a different organization that tends to hang out at grocery stores at Christmas time.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Well, what's unique about the Shriners, you see that particular organization around Christmas time. Sometimes you see Pop Warner associations,
Yep.
cheerleaders, Knights of
Okay.
Columbus, firefighters for the MDA. They're all outside in the cold, in the rain, in
You
inclement
guys are
weather.
smart. You go at Easter time. Although
They-
it snowed at Easter not too long
They
ago.
open the door to us. We're the only, and I don't know why. We're allowed to stand inside the store, out of the weather. Well, oftentimes the store manager will say, "Hey, let me get you a chair to
Maybe
sit
they
in," or
like
something.
the
I mean, it's
fuzz.
just, I think it's what we do and what
Yeah.
we do for the community and what we do for the children. Everybody wants to be involved and give what they can.
Okay.
So sometimes it's just the generosity of the store manager opening up the door and letting us
There
in.
you go.
But that program
Or
is.
maybe they're hoping for free tickets to the whiskey tasting.
They could, yeah, they might. They might.
Now, earlier in our conversation, you mentioned Montreal's hospital is opening later this year. Putting you on the spot here. What do you see as the 5-year plan of the Shriners in general, either Aleppo or everybody? Is there like another hospital in the works, or?
Well, I think we're trying to take a more conservative approach
Okay.
because of the advancements in the care. Children aren't staying in the hospitals overnight. Most of our orthopedic care is day surgery, so we're looking at, our motto is probably going to change to clinic motto. We, as a hospital, have requirements to have so many staff members 24/7. We never shut the lights off. The bills go. In a clinic motto, we could have office hours of 8 to 5, 7 to
okay.
6. We turn the lights off at the end of the day. Our expenses stop. We need to be conservative to sustain, and we'd love to be around for another 100 years. So
Okay.
I see our 5-year plan going towards clinics. Currently, they're doing a lot of research in Mexico City to put in a clinic.
Okay.
We treat hundreds and hundreds of children at our LA hospital,
Okay.
and our Galveston hospital, hundreds of children a year from Mexico. And the problem associated with getting across the border nowadays, the time consumed, what used to be an hour, takes 6-7 hours. So we're looking at putting in a clinic in Mexico City and staffing it with our doctors and nurses who can treat the kids there. And that does two things. It lowers our expenses for operating, and it will also lower our expenses for transporting children.
Oh, yeah,
And
totally.
so I see that as probably our 5-year plan, or the way our business motto is going to change.
The foreseeable future.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, well, we are out of time.
Is that right?
We are.
I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you thought an hour would last forever, but I
I
do
did.
want to thank
I
you.
can't thank you enough for having me on.
Well,
This has
glad
been
you were
great.
able to, and
Well,
I can't wait to go to the circus in another 6 weeks or so.
if you let me know what day you're coming, we'll make sure you get some really nice seats for the kids.
Okay, great.
Just let Doug know.
All right, thank you very much. And I do want to thank everyone at home for tuning in this evening. Hope you enjoyed our conversation as much as I have, and I look forward to seeing you around town. Have a great night. Good night.